All right, so now that you've completed this worksheet of vocabulary, I just want to blast through the definitions. Obviously, yours might be a little bit different than mine. I encourage you to write it in a way that makes sense to you. So hopefully you had a chance to look them up on the internet, and then you can kind of add in anything that you might, revelations you might have after watching this. So in this class, we are going to be writing computer programs, which is just a set of instructions to do a task. And it's usually like a set of instructions that you give a computer. And so a computer, you have like specific rules for how you communicate with it. Much like in the English language, we have question marks and periods and quotations and all that stuff. You have like ways that you communicate with the computer. So, um, yeah, so a language, I guess, is actually very much like German or French or English. That's a different way two people communicate. So when we communicate with a computer, you can write your instructions in different languages. All right, and so um, like the programming language is like the software, the set of rules we use to communicate with the computer. And each language is a little bit different. Once you know one, you kind of know all of them. They all have similar things like loops and if statements and stuff like that, but they do the syntax slightly different. All right, and so some common languages are Java, C, C++, Ruby. Maybe you've heard of something called Python. Those are all common languages. The one we're going to be using in this class is called Java. Interesting side note, if you just Google the most common popular languages, Java is still way up there. So you're actually learning a language that people use, and it looks like on average they make $104,000. So it's a real common language. JavaScript is actually very common, but it's not all that much related to Java. In fact, it's kind of not at all really related to Java. But you can see some kind of common ones. So for sure, Java is an important language, and I think that was on our vocab sheet. So yeah, Java is the one we're going to use because it's used on the AP test, and a specific one called object-oriented programming, which won't make a lot of sense to you, but you might hear that later. Um, yeah, it's got a lot of cool features, like you can reuse other people's code really easily, which I think is what the real power of Java or any other object-oriented language is. Okay, so I think we got all that stuff. So Java is what we use in this class. Um, all right, so to actually type up your programs, what you type them up in is called the editor, also called an IDE, which is Individual Development Environment. And that's where we use to like write and edit our code. All right, and there's a lot of different ones out there. We're going to use one that's called Eclipse. All right, and so I can actually show you what it looks like. Here's an example of a computer program, and you type it up in Eclipse, right? So you can just type statements much like you would in a Word document, except it's not going to look like English. So if I want to do my age for Mr. Westphal there, that's just typing up basically some words and numbers that tell the computer to do something. So this one just says make a variable called age and give it a value of 39. So anyways, if you want to see a Java program, here's an example. And what it does is it just assigns 3 test scores, and then it does the average of them. So it adds them up. That's what's happening here, divide by 3. And then this just displays what the average is. So I'm going to run this one in Eclipse here and show you. And if they spit out, boom, there's the average of those numbers. One more time, sorry, I didn't leave it up there very well. Okay, so that's our editor is called Eclipse, and this is a Java program. These are commands given to the computer to perform a specific task, in this case, average some numbers. Okay, so data structure is like a specific type of data, or like I want a way to organize data, but maybe a specific type of data would be a better answer to this. And so the most common things you have actually for data are numbers, which are going to be stored as ints. And then if you have words like Zach or winner or something like that, they're going to be stored in a string. All right, so those are just different types of, we'll call them variables, but it's different types of data. You could also have like images, you could have links to something, you could have a video. That'd be all just different types of data. Okay, GUI, this is called GUI, it's called GUI, it stands for Graphical User Interface. That's the part of the program you actually see. Right, and one of the reasons I put this on here is the AP test has nothing about GUIs. right? Which is not exciting because students usually like to make programs that have GUIs. For us, a lot of our programs are not going to have anything. We'll have these little, what's called a command line. It'll just print statements out like this, right? Versus a GUI would actually pop up something and allow you to interact with it, which we'll get into that some in this class, but because it's not the focus of the AP test, it's not the focus of this class, which is kind of unfortunate. But usually after the AP test, students want to learn about GUIs, so that last month of the year, we usually spend a lot of time going over GUI information. Okay, and then a huge one from this is to know this term called algorithm, which is a big fancy word, but all it really is like a process, like a step-by-step process for completing some sort of task. Okay, so like a recipe is an example, like you gather this, you mix in so much flour, so many eggs, mix it up, pour it into a pan, put it in an oven, heat it up. That's an algorithm, and it has to be very detailed. So even what I was saying there wasn't detailed enough, right? Like you need to know what the temperature is, how much of each ingredient, how long do you stir it. So like an algorithm needs to be very, very specific. So just an example of one from computer science here. Sorry, I'm on the wrong slide, but like one might be like, how do we sort some numbers? I don't know why I have an H here. It's because I can't spell, that's why. But so we want to sort some numbers. And so like, how would you do this? Like, what would be the process? If I want to put these order from least to greatest, what would be the algorithm? And an algorithm would be like a set of steps. So for example, we could say search through and find the smallest number. Boom, here I am. Then switch it with whatever number's in the first spot. Zoop. Okay, and then go through to the next spot and search the remaining numbers for the smallest among them and switch it. I guess the 2 just stays there. We go over here and say, okay, to find the smallest of these numbers, here it is, and then switch it, right? And then keep going until you've sorted all the numbers. Okay, and so an algorithm is a very, very specific set of numbers. Sorry, specific set of steps to complete some tasks, like sorting numbers, finding the highest numbers, averaging 3 numbers. Those are all common algorithms. Okay, thanks for watching.